Any comments, questions from the commission regarding the minutes? Is there any public comment? Hearing no further request to speak on this item, is there a motion to approve the July 28th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? So moved. Thank you. Item 4 is the executive director's report. And Dan Kaplan is acting as the executive director and will provide today's report. By the way, Trent Rohr is away on holiday and he happens to be in Rome, and I just texted him the name of a restaurant. This is part of the records, but he did get the text and he's doing well. Item 5 is the employee of the month. Oh,
Director.
Dan, do you have anything else to say? Dan, do you have anything else?
It is okay, President Khan. I do want to say it's great that Trent is in Italy and we all wish him well. I did want to tell you a few things though about what's going on here.
Good.
So on the federal level, there are just a few things to know about at this moment. One is the public health emergency that we've been working under, both as it affects the coronavirus response and as it affects Medi-Cal eligibility. Looks now like it's going to continue through January 15th. And so this affects at the HSA level, the work we do with that eligibility, and there's a lot of work that we don't do in the short term that allows us to just keep people on Medi-Cal. So starting in January, we think we are going to have to do the full redetermination process that we had done before the pandemic. The other thing is that the SNAP benefit increase, which funds CalFresh benefits, will take effect on October 1st. That's a 12.5% increase. So an increase in benefits. At the state level, there obviously we're at the end, after the end of the session. We're in the point of time where the governor is finalizing his signatures on bills. Just a few things we're watching and that I wanted to bring to your attention. One that's getting a lot of press is the Care Court legislation that's been talked about a lot and is still a little bit unformed. We are moving forward towards implementation of Care Court in 2 waves in California. The first wave does include San Francisco, and that means we will have to establish a new care courts by October 1st of 23. So there's a small group of counties that's in the first wave, and then the additional 51 counties are in the second wave, and they will be establishing care courts in December of 24. As I said, there's a lot of detail to be hammered down at this point, but the basic idea is that people, family, friends, first responders, social workers will be able to submit a petition to the court on behalf of a person with untreated schizophrenia or other psychotic disorders, and that shows that they qualify for the attention of the care court. And the court would then order a clinical evaluation of the person, and assuming that they qualify for the requirements of care court, would move forward to order the development of a care plan that would have to be followed during the next 12 months. Participants would attend hearings to demonstrate that they are complying with the plan. And if someone who has court mandated services fails to complete their plan or their treatment, then it would be easier than at present to move them into the public conservatorship process. So, as I said, this is coming together very quickly. It feels to us like the main impacts within HSA will be on the DOS side of the house where our public conservatorship program is. But it's certainly the case that there may be impacts in some of our benefit programs as well, especially the CAP program, where there's probably more likelihood of overlap in population between folks who are served in the CAP program and who may be eligible for services through the Care Court. So that's when we will be watching closely and reporting on as it develops. At the state level, there was some late money for family finding support, $150 million statewide over a 5-year period. And then the CDSS will be asking counties to propose an implementation strategy around the use of this money. So that has yet to happen, but it's in the offing. And then there was work that came out of the session on CalWORKS and CalFresh administration funding for eligibility services. And right at this point, there is a county team that is forming up to work on the CalFresh allocation. So basically, if you think about it this way, the CalFresh administration is what pays for our work with clients who are applying for, who are already on the CalFresh benefit program. There is a local share that is generally thought to be 15% of the costs, a federal share that's 50% of the costs, and a state share that's 35% of the costs. The federal share is open-ended. The state share is capped. And so there's an ongoing discussion between counties and the state about how big that state share is going to be. And so this effort that's starting off now is really to evaluate what's needed for the state share. Obviously, when a county uses up its entire state allocation, it funds what would have been the state share with local money. And we call that overmatching. And in a county like San Francisco County, we overmatch a lot. So we put a lot of extra local money in. But obviously, if the state increased its allocation, then we would be able to redeploy that money to other places where it would be needed more. So on other local news, we are moving forward in our food support program with our food empowerment market. The grant for that was brought to you relatively recently. Bayview Senior Services, who is the grantee, has signed a lease for a food empowerment market site at 5030 3rd Street. And now they are preparing that space and hiring up, and they will be getting ready to open the site later this year. Also, one of the things that we are ending at this point is what we've called the I&Q helpline, the isolation and quarantine helpline. During the pandemic, we set up many food programs. We are carrying most of them forward. The I&Q helpline was designed to help people who were either infected with COVID or were close contacts and were quarantining while they waited to find out if they had COVID, to remain at home. And so the helpline arranged food deliveries to people's houses. It had served 147,000 meals over its 2-year life. So it was a fairly big program and very important for helping folks stay at home if they thought they were COVID infected. It worked mainly in Excelsior, Bayview, and Mission neighborhoods, but it was a citywide program. And, you know, as we're moving to what we hope will be genuinely the post-COVID time, that's the sort of thing that we're phasing out. I'll talk a little bit about the SIP system later on, which we're also in the process of working with HSH on the close down. And the other news in food is we have we're in the process of the transition of the Mission Food Hub operation to Dolores Street. That was also a grant that came before you relatively recently, and that's moving forward in what feels like a pretty seamless way. So services at the Mission Food Hub are continuing to operate well, which is great. We are also, we have just submitted an application for participation in the state's guaranteed income program. And I'm pretty sure Trent has mentioned this more than once, but one of the program areas that I think became very much of interest during the pandemic was the notion of guaranteed income. The state responded by putting $35 million in last year's budget into a pilot program bucket and went through a long process of developing specifications for participation in the program, but has recently put out its request for applications, and we have applied to participate in this program. We've focused on people who are leaving the foster care system. And so in our proposal, we would provide $1,200 a month grants to individuals leaving the foster care system. And for an 18-month period, obviously this will be an evaluation process, as with guaranteed income programs in general. They're still very much, I think, in the pilot phase or the evaluation phase. And so the state and the social services community is really collecting information on how well these work to change people's life, to stabilize them, to allow them to move forward. So there's been some work in other places on people leaving the foster care system, and that's the piece of this that we've proposed stepping into. So it would serve 150 people, and then we would be evaluating and hopefully, if successful, continue it. For contracts in general, one of the things we go through at this point in time is what we generally call the CODB, or the cost of doing business adjustment process. And our contracts team sends out to all of the CBOs with existing contracts a request that they add a certain amount of money to their budgets and to rework their budgets to make use of that money. This year, the process was a little bit more complicated at the city level. And the city first thought that it would move forward and it would provide a 5.25% COLA, cost of living adjustment, for the staff in CBOs, but not address other cost changes that were occurring at the CBO level. During the legislative process at the local level, what happened was there was a lot of advocacy for adding in cost of doing business money for non-wage related costs. So there was 2.5% put in for non-wage related costs. On average, that comes to about 4%, wages and non-wage. And so our contracts team is in the process now of working with CBOs who have existing contracts to add that 4% to their contracts. And that's always a long process, and obviously it involves people updating each budget, but that's going on in the background. I had mentioned SIP hotels as things that were from COVID and are closing down. So as you know, when COVID started, HSA was asked to stand up the shelter-in-place hotel system, which we did. Many people worked on that, especially in the earliest days of the pandemic. We put together a system with about 30 hotels in it. It had about 2,600 rooms at the top. It was very closely allied with the isolation and quarantine system, which grew and shrunk over time, but at its largest had about 500 rooms in it. And we have been demobilizing buildings, and this is a partnership between HSA and HSH to close down the buildings, to relocate clients, and this is happening on the HSH side, but to relocate clients primarily to permanent supportive housing. And then to be able to close the hotels and turn them back to their owners, with a few exceptions. So there are 3 buildings that we are going to hold on to through at least the rest of this fiscal year to expand the HSH shelter system. And then on the Department of Public Health side, there's a building that's been used for an alcohol treatment system, which we're in the process of trying to extend as well. But most of the system is closing down. And we are working through the complicated process of assessing damage in the buildings and figuring out how much to pay for that. So that's going on now. It's a fairly extensive effort. We have, you may know or you may not know, that we have been for many months working within the agency on a schedule for workers, where workers were coming in 2 days a week unless their jobs required them to be in more. We moved last week to a schedule where workers are coming in 3 days a week unless their jobs require them to be in more. And so that's working its way through the process. It's not a sort of a snap your finger kind of thing. Schedules are being recast, telecommuting agreements are being recast, but it's going relatively smoothly at this point. I had wanted to mention, as I often mention to Trent, the work of our diversity, equity, and inclusion group has been working on a number of elements of broadening the representation of people of color in management in our workforce. And one of their programs that we have a lot of hope for is their mentorship program. We went through a first wave of mentee-mentor pairings. Folks graduated, and we are now in a second wave. We have 16 people who are in the mentorship program at this point. And the goal is really to help people get ready to promote. So obviously the test of this over time will be if in fact people who've been mentees do promote more, but we do have a lot of hope for this program. And finally, on the administrative side, I wanted to mention work of our disaster preparedness team. This is a team that doesn't get much attention until they get a lot of attention. And certainly this was a team that was very active in the COVID response. So that's quieted down a little bit. They are reworking their plans for sheltering and feeding in the event of a regular disaster, fires, floods, earthquakes. They're also at this point getting ready for, and this is sort of an odd thing, but you've all heard about it. We have noticed the phenomenon of groups of migrants from the southern border being shipped to northern cities. And obviously that hasn't happened in San Francisco yet, but we are trying to be prepared for that in the event that it does. And they're leading our work at that. HSA's main role in that is coordinating the sheltering, but the sheltering becomes the hub. It's where legal services are delivered. It's where physical and mental health assessments are done. And it's where we work with clients to figure out what their next step is. Commissioner Semmel. Is there an indication that it will happen?
That it might happen.
I mean, we like any other northern city who might be a recipient, and no, we don't have an indication that it will happen, especially, and obviously we're all hoping it does. We're all hoping it doesn't. We're all hoping that Governors Abbott and DeSantis stop this. It's a foolish thing to be doing. They're doing it as a grandstanding ploy, but cities where it's happened have to deal with it. So we want to be ready. Yeah. Okay, turning to economic support and self-sufficiency, just a few to mention. Some big cost of living adjustments are going into place. I mentioned the SNAP adjustment before. That's on the federal level, but it rolls through to clients on the local level. There's been a 21% increase in CalWorks grants. That's funded mainly at, well, it's funded state and federal, but the decision making is on the state level there. And that's to go into effect next month. And then in San Francisco, we tie our CAP grant increase to our CalWorks increases. And this is also a little complicated this year. The CalWorks increase is 21%, but it's broken into two pieces. One piece is an 11% COLA to keep the grant in line with inflation. And the other piece is a piece that was added in later to bring clients closer to being out of deep poverty. And so when we analyzed that this year, what we determined was our local law would have us match the 11% COLA, but not the deep poverty adjustment. So the CAP program is including an 11% increase for this year, and that also goes into effect next month. Okay, this is one of the things we don't talk about that much is federal and state audits. I guess this is what happens when the chief administrative officer steps in for the ED. We talk about nuts and bolts here things. So one of the things that has been going on lately is we've had a number of audits, and the way I like to look at these is these are all chances for us to get criticism on the way we are delivering services that will hopefully allow us to improve the way we deliver services. So we have recently had a CalFresh management evaluation. We are still awaiting the report on that one. We've had teams from CDSS and Food and Nutrition Service come in and look at our EBT issuance program and our EVES program. And we've had teams coming in and do what they call a civil rights audit, which is really mainly about accessibility to our services. It's language access, it's access for people with disabilities, it's access for people who need special assistance in applying for benefits. And so we're at various stages in terms of evaluating what we've gotten from these and developing our plans to respond to them. But the overall goal is to take what we hear and say, okay, this is something we could do better. Let's change our practice. So that's working its way through the system. In the CAP program, we have reinstated our Care Not Cash program. That was suspended during the pandemic. It's back into effect as of August 1st. And you know, one of the key reasons it was suspended is we had much less access to shelter during the pandemic. The HSH shelter system implemented much more social distancing, and that reduced the number of shelter beds that were available in the city. That's beginning to move back in the other direction. And as I said before, HSH is in the process of augmenting its shelter capacity by holding on to 3 of the hotels as shelter. So it's building out a little more capacity, and then we are beginning to be able to offer shelter beds again. One of the items you have on your agenda later this morning is to talk about the financing of the Care Not Cash system and our financial relationship with HSH around Care Not Cash. So on the WDD program, I think we always note these big even number milestones. We have now made 30,000 placements in the Jobs Now program since the inception of the program. We've placed 52 people this fiscal year, and we are working on many other placements as well. And this is an ongoing effort. Placements became much more difficult during the pandemic for a lot of reasons, some on the client side, some on the employer side. But as the economy has reactivated itself, we are now beginning to make placements again at a faster rate. ESSS has been working on a digital divide initiative where it provides laptops or tablets to clients and provides training in the use of laptops and tablets and the internet with the goal of bridging the digital divide. And so that's been moving forward. We've served 267 clients so far through this program. We've got the new Immigrant Self-Sufficiency Services program up and running. The goal there is to help undocumented residents be able to develop ways of supporting themselves. And so that now has 57 families enrolled. And then in our housing support program, which has expanded a lot with new money that came from the state, we placed 164 families in housing with subsidies for the last fiscal year. And we are moving forward to continue operations of that program. So just a few notes on some celebrations in FCS. A National Adoptions Day will be held on November 18th. There'll be more information on that coming soon. And the holiday event for foster youth and non-minor dependents will be December 17th, and there will be more information on that. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Dan. Item 5 is our Employee of the Month. The Commission is pleased to announce that Suong Vo, a Protective Service Supervisor with Family and Children's Services, is the September Employee of the Month. Suong is an incredible protective service worker. She embodies the core practice modeled by listening, engaging, communicating, and teaming with the families involved in her caseload and in her unit. Suong has made the impossible possible with children on her caseload. She has been able to find permanency for the youth who are in high level of care, and she has done tremendous work with families to get them to the point of reunification and dismissal. The families with whom she works all trust and respect her. She works endlessly for her families and finds solutions to any problem. Suong is a great mentor to her peers. She has trained many new employees. She always helps them adhere to the program expectations and works with them to deliver culturally responsive services. As a new emergency response supervisor, she has exceeded most performance expectations as champion best practices in the front end. Suong demonstrated leadership and maturity by working collaboratively across the agency and with all providers. She has found common ground with everyone and works from that created space. She has been an inspiration to her peers and line staff. Suong is passionate and honest. She is a fierce advocate for the rights of everyone and understands that in order for families to get quality service, staff need ample support and to be held to standards. Thank you for your hard work, Suong, and congratulations.
Yay, Tom!
Dan, would you like to add some comments?
Sure. What's important in doing about work, it's for me and many governments to report. One of the things that me is really worth mentioning here is the role of, so I say, mentor, and someone who brings along other workers, had one on training, because we're trying to work on very hard, very emotionally difficult, learn, understand, but there's also a really tough emotional side to it. And I think people who do this work sign up because I think it's really important, but they need support, and they need to know there are others who are with them who really appreciate the work and appreciate the difficulty of the work. And I think that having someone, on the line who can bring other people along is an incredible value. So I want to congratulate you for that.
Today, I am not good enough to see, we gave me a family of referral, I'll handle it, but easy part, I'll get through it. I wanted to thank my coworkers who've been here with me all the years I've been here, working alongside with me, my supervisor, Herman Pages, who's still here, who's retired, my manager, my director. I can only do this work possibly with the outcome with their support. Not in this alone, and I want to thank for their patience. That's a lot of questions. I go around and ask again with the virus. So thank you for being here. I also want to thank my family, who's not here with me, but have always been around every step of the way in my career. Every time I move a position, I consult with them. My mom, my kids. I also want to thank them for bringing me here from Vietnam when I was 17 to give me this opportunity and the learning child welfare career and do what I do today. So thank you for being here with me in person or on Zoom. I know some of my team are there. So thank you guys for being here. I'm truly humbled to receive this award. Appreciate everybody.
Yay, song!
Item 2 on the agenda is the consent calendar. Do any of my fellow commissioners want to remove an item for individual discussion? Is there any public comment? Hearing no further requests to speak on this item, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair, I vote the approval of the consent calendar with ratification of the items that are requested 1, 2, 3 under A.
All in favor? Aye. So moved. The first action item 7A is the resolution to hold in-person meetings with some members possibly appearing remotely. Are there any comments or questions from the commission? Is there any public comment? And I ask for a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Item 7B, Justin Chan is providing an analysis of the last fiscal year savings and reviewing estimates of revenues for this fiscal year for the Homelessness and Supportive Housing Fund. Justin.
Good morning, Commissioners, Deputy Director Kaplan. I'm Justin Chan, a Principal Budget Analyst for the Human Services Agency. The Homelessness and Supportive Housing Fund pays for housing and services for homeless CAP clients through savings resulting from the implementation of Care Not Cash. The ordinance requires that on an annual basis, the Human Services Agency report how accurate its projected savings were for the year. The savings from Care Not Cash that support this fund result from two sources. One is the reduction in the homeless cap caseload from a baseline of 3,000. The other is reduced grant amounts for homeless cap recipients who are offered shelter. Since HSA administers CAP, HSA is responsible for handling the calculation of these savings. We transfer these savings at the end of each fiscal year into the Homelessness and Supportive Housing Fund. HSH then uses these funds to administer their housing and services for their clients. The savings for fiscal year 21-22 came to 14.9 million, around 3 million less than budgeted. This outcome was driven by a larger than expected growth in the homeless cap caseload and the city's reduced shelter bed capacity as a result of social distancing requirements. The inability to offer a shelter bed leads to a full cash aid payment, which would otherwise have gone towards the care fund. For fiscal year 22-23, the care fund budget is set at 18.8 million. The city's shelter capacity is in the process of being restored. And since August of 2022, HSA has been offering shelter to every new homeless cap aid applicant. And starting in October of 2022, the monthly cap aid grant will increase by 11%, which will increase the maximum pool of savings that HSA could generate. Lastly, I wish to reiterate that all dollars which don't go towards the care fund are paid to homeless cap clients as cash aid. So these dollars support the homeless population just either through cash or through HSH's supportive services. HSA staff recommends that the commission adopt the findings regarding the fiscal year 21-22 homelessness and supportive housing savings and transmit them to the Board of Supervisors and the Office of the Controller. I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission? Is there any public comment? Hearing no further requests to speak on the item, we will close public comment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Item 7C, Karina Zhang is requesting authorization to enter a new grant agreement with the San Francisco Community College District. Karina, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, President. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Karina Zhang. I am a Program Support Analyst with the Family and Children Services. I am here today to request your authorization to enter into a new grant agreement with the San Francisco Community College District for the period of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2027 in an amount of $6,106,105 plus a 10% contingency for a total amount not to exceed $6,716,716. The purpose of this grant is to make available a training curriculum that fulfills the requirements of the federal Title IV training program, to build and strengthen agency and care provider capacity to improve outcomes for children, youth, and families in San Francisco. The training curriculum is offered to RFA foster parents and relative caregivers, short-term residential treatment programs, foster family agencies, Family and Children Services staff, and other Title IV eligible service providers. Together with the subcontracted agencies, City College will provide 3,500 hours of classroom and field training and serve 1,600 unduplicated partner agency staff, parents, and FCS workers on an annual basis. And lastly, the funding for this grant is 100% federal Title IV funds. The in-kind match provided by City College allowed the department to draw down federal funds for this project. And I have here with me via Zoom, Stephanie Sinar, the Director of Contract Education and Extension Programs from City College, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have for this grant. Thank you.
Are there any comments from members of the commission?
Yeah, just, is this novel? This seems to me, first time I've heard of it, and so I'm excited about that. That City College and our agency and other agencies are working together for curriculum to do the programs we have to do, yeah.
A little bit, I guess, this has gone back for a while.
But we started this back in 2002, I believe. I had this contract since last year, but we've been having this collaboration with City College for a while now. And because of their ability to meet the match requirements, we're able to draw down federal training dollars to fund the Title 40 training program.
Is there any public comment? Hearing no further requests to speak on the item, we'll close public comment. Is there a motion?
I move that we. No.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye, so moved.
Aye.
Thank you.
Right.
Item 7D is Cindy Ward requesting authorization to modify the existing grant agreement with Bay Area Legal Aid.
Good morning, Commissioners and Deputy Director Kaplan. I'm Cindy Ward I'm the Homeless Benefits Linkages Manager. The Homeless Benefits Linkages Program requests authorization to modify the existing grant with Bay Area Legal Aid for the period of September 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. The purpose of this modification is to provide additional legal and advocacy services to assist people experiencing homelessness in obtaining SSI through the Housing and Disability Advocacy Program, or HDAP. HDAP services are provided through a grant from the California Department of Social Services, which funds outreach, case management, SSI advocacy services, and housing for people experiencing homelessness with a disability. HSA collaborates with HSH to provide permanent supportive housing for program participants. HSA has received a significant increase in HDAP funding through fiscal year 23-24. In coordination with HSH, we have expanded program services to shelters and navigation centers through a multidisciplinary team that includes enrollment in HDAP and the Home Safe program administered by Adult Protective Services, HSH coordinated entry, and benefits application assistance for CAP, Medi-Cal, and CalFresh. The goal of the MDT is to bring these critical services directly to some of the most vulnerable people experiencing homelessness. Since April of this year, the MDT has visited 5 navigation center sites and plans to visit another next month, followed by the next door shelter in November. As part of the MDT, Bay Legal has enrolled 25 clients in HDAP. Bay Legal's goal is to serve a total of 282 participants. They continue to represent clients at the Whitcomb SIP Hotel, work that began in response to the pandemic, as well as clients who were transferred to HDAP from the Tipping Point SSI advocacy pilot, which ended on June 30th. Currently, there are 136 total clients enrolled in the program. Bay Legal has significantly increased their staff, which will allow them to increase the pace of enrollments. I'm able to answer any questions, and Reagan Jern from Bay Legal is here virtually as well.
Any comments from members of the commission? Is there any public comment? Hearing no further requests to speak on the item, we'll close public comment. Is there a motion for item 7D?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Item 7E, Vanita Dunlap is requesting authorization to modify the existing grant agreement with Seneca Family of Agencies. Good morning, Vanita.
Morning. Good morning, President Khan and Commissioners. My name is Vanetta Hall Dunlap, and I am a Program Support Analyst with Family and Children Services. Also joining us by Zoom today are Greg Rideout, Lauren Kretzinger, and Janet Briggs, all from Seneca Family of Agencies. I'm here today to seek your authorization to modify the existing grant with Seneca Family of Agencies for the period of October 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 in the additional amount of $1,680,000, plus a 10% contingency for a revised total grant amount not to exceed $9,773,882 for the provision of mobile response, intensive care coordination, and emergency placement services for high needs youth, foster youth, and their families. The purpose of this grant is to provide a mobile urgent response system for eligible in-home and foster children and youth, and provide emergency placement and stabilization services to youth with intensive behavioral health needs. The components of the mobile response with intensive care management and coordination and placements in a short-term residential therapeutic program +1, what we refer to as a STRTP +1 bed. It's designed to stabilize youth, minimize placement disruptions, and improve safety, permanency, and well-being outcomes. While the emergency bed program initially utilized an enhanced foster parent model, there have been significant challenges. The program opened in September 2019, shortly before the impact of COVID, and it became increasingly difficult to recruit and retain foster caregivers and provide appropriate interventions for children and youth with significant acuity. This transition to a STRTP +1 will offer placements for one child at a time. It will provide professional staffing and intensive clinical services geared towards that individual youth. The program is now located in San Francisco, where children and youth can be closer to their family and their community. In fiscal year 21-22, there were 356 calls to the mobile response team. There were 14 placements in emergency beds and 52 intensive care cases open. At this time, we're happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this request, and we thank you for your consideration.
Are there any comments from members of the commission?
I have a question. Do you have enhanced foster parent model as the COVID dies down?
Well, we have another portion of the emergency placement program, which is through AFS, and we're going to be expanding that program. We're going to come back to you next month, asking for some additional funds for that. We're also participating in an RFP that the state has put out to create like very enhanced type program to deal with emergency placements. So we have some things in the pipeline.
Clients you're talking about here are the most severe that need to be, that need professional.
Yeah, they're the highest level. Mhm.
Is there any public comment? Hearing no further requests, can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. Item 7F, Cindy Lynn is requesting authorization to modify the existing grant agreement with Farming Hope. Cindy.
Item here before you today to request authorization to modify the existing grant agreement with Farming Hope for an increase in the amount of meals offered to the community and to hire additional apprentices.
For the period of May 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2023, for an additional amount of $350,000 plus 10% contingency for a revised total amount not to exceed $642,400. Through this grant, Farming Hope will produce at minimum 90,000 meals and hire at least 25 culinary apprentices. The meals produced are offered free of charge to clients of partner organizations, many of whom serve very vulnerable and low-income families with young children. Apprentices are often community members seeking to enter the hospitality industry for the first time.
and they are often recruited from the pool of recipients of the free meals. This modification increases HSA support for the program so that it may continue to operate sustainably and to continue to provide high-quality meals and job training. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for your consideration.
Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Is there any public comment? Hearing no further requests to speak, we will close public comment. Is there any motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. Item 8 is public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none and hearing none, our meeting is adjourned. Where?